Hello and welcome back to Speed Demon Painting. Today we are continuing in our series on how to start with a faction in Dystopian Wars, and today is the Alliance turn. The Alliance, or the Latin Alliance as they are sometimes known, is a faction that is made up of multiple nations, of which the French and the Italians are definitely the biggest contributors to their overall power. However, there's also the Susa to take into account, which is the Socialist Union of South America, which are over on the other side of the world map fighting it out against the Union. Now, the Alliance isn't present in any of the two-player starter sets that are out these days, so the best starting point for beginners is obviously the starter set for the Alliance. This includes largely a French force, in which the Oriflamme battle cruiser, which you can see in the picture above, is the main battleship, the main flagship I should say, because it is not really a battleship, it is a heavy battle cruiser. In addition to the big flagship, you also get two frontline sprues. Two cruisers can be built with those, which are either Loire, Picardie, Chevalier or Charlemagne type cruisers, and 4 Écuyère frigates as well. This is pretty much the standard way that Warcradle Studios provides you with fleets. You get a plastic sprue and you immediately get a choice on what to build. Now the good news is you can't really go wrong with any of the 4 types mentioned here, but if I may make a suggestion, I would start out with the Chevalier. It is a very well-rounded ship that will see its use in many different lists that are to come, so a Chevalier is definitely a good choice. Another fun little thing you can try is a Charlemagne class, because if you take one, you have access to the smallest potential flagship available to the Alliance fleet, which is always quite fun if you want to make an outflanking force. Besides the 2 frontline sprues, you also get 2 Levant sprues. Now with that you can make 2 Levant vessels, which are these semi-flying / skimming ships. These are the Chasseur class, the Furieux class or the Volière class, and in addition to those you can make 2 submarines, which either come in the Épaulard version or the Sirène version. Warcradle Studios always tries to make sure that the ships are balanced because, well, that's actually their road to having high sales numbers. If all the variants are quite useful to have, well, then you're going to be buying more sprues, which sort of makes sense. You can't go very wrong with either the Chasseur, the Furieux or the Volière, but you came here for advice, so I'm going to give it. I would take the Furieux if you're a beginning player, simply because it is your landing vessel of choice for the Alliance, and so you will find yourself using it in many different fleets, even if you're branching out into other nations, which we'll talk about in a bit. As far as the submarines go, I would personally start with the Épaulard bombardment sort of submarine, because, well, that one definitely can do a lot of big punching in the opening rounds with extreme range, which is something that the French generally lack a bit. And of course the main reason why this is the best starting point for beginners is that this box comes with everything, including dice, templates, tokens, cards and everything you really need to play the game. Now, before we continue talking about possible expansions, let me first introduce you to how these forces are made in Dystopian Wars, how you actually build that one. Well, these forces are made up of battle fleets, of which one needs to be a main battle fleet. And every Orbat, which is the equivalent of a codex in this game, has a bunch of different battle fleets that you can select to make your force. And there's generally 2 types of battle fleet that's available to a faction. The faction battle fleet, the generic one, also referred to as a generic one, or themed battle fleets, which are usually led by a specific flagship and will come with a lower selection of ships to choose from. The Alliance faction battle fleet is a bit special in one way that normally requires you to take a few surface ships, or one at least, and then a few others, but the French have options to include either surface ships or skimmer units, as you can see from the tokens mentioned on the picture in the top right corner. The downside to having a faction battle fleet is that you can only select one submarine and you can only select one flyer unit, although that isn't really that big of a deal yet because the Alliance doesn't have access yet to a lot of flying units. The other major downside to using this faction battle fleet is that it does not confer a straight off bonus unless it is your second main battle fleet, in which case it gains the strategic reserves battle fleet bonus, which is useful for making an outflanking battle fleet in your force. But generally speaking, if your first main battle fleet is the faction battle fleet, you're not really getting any significant bonuses. The way to unlock these specific bonuses is to go for the more thematic fleets, in this case the French frontline battle fleet depicted in the bottom right corner. You have to select a French flagship to lead that one, meaning the Italians and the Susa, they are right out, you can't select those. In addition, any of the other units must have the French trait, and if you want to, you can break one of the rules by having multiple Chevalier, Loire or Écuyère classes if you want to. So normally units aren't spammable in the game, but you can do so in these specific themed battle fleets. In addition, they also come with 2 skimmer slots in this particular fleet, so yeah, you have a bit more flexibility in what you can make. And the big deal is that you get a bonus, which is a command override, and a command override allows you to basically one dice roll that you've completely whiffed throughout the game can be re-rolled by using your command override ability, which is a very strong bonus to get in this fleet, but you are limiting yourself to the types of ship you can take. And in case you were wondering where I got all of this information, you can go to www.dystopianwars.com, and this is the main screen that you are greeted with. The home button looks a bit like this, and if you click on the factions tab here, you can select either of the 8 factions shown above. We are of course talking about the Alliance today, and if we select them, you can take either their orbats, an identification guide, unit cards, etc, etc. We are of course interested in looking at the orbat. It is a PDF document that you can just basically look at for free, and the neat thing is it will actually remember where you left off. And we were talking about battle fleets, so these are the specific battle fleets that you can take in them. There's quite a lot of them, and remember, your force can have as many battle fleets as you want. Now there's one thing that you'll notice, they are often tied to a country, such as this French frontline battle fleet that I've used, but you can also take things like French, or rather Alliance fortifications battle fleet. These are specialist battle fleets. I will not be discussing those in this video because this is more of a beginner's guide, but these are options that you can take. Another specialist battle fleet, for instance, is the French Levant battle fleet set, where you are mostly using a Magenta class or a Saint-Michel class, along with only skimmers to go along with it. The bonus is that you get Saber Rattle, and that allows you to shimmy your troops around a bit before the start of the battle, and to make it a bit more unpredictable for your opponent, or to get that touch closer to your enemy to unleash with those short-range weapons that they have. You can also go for Italians, both frontline battle fleets and support battle fleets, and then we've also already mentioned the Susa battle fleet, which is the Socialist Union of South America. So that basically is to give you an idea of how you make your force. And that idea of adding multiple battle fleets to your force is reflected in how the models are actually sold. You can expand your force by adding more battle fleet sets to them, and there are many different options for you within the Alliance faction. The first way to expand on that one-player starter set is by adding more French battle fleets. There are many options in this one. There is the Couronne battle fleet set, the Vauban, the Magenta, or, should you so desire, you can get a second Oriflamme by adding an Oriflamme battle fleet set as well. The Couronne is a big carrier, and if you ask me, the most competitive option, which is why I will be talking about that one in a bit more detail later on. Or you can get the Vauban Sky Fortress, which is the big flying ship. Also an interesting option because that one comes with 6 extra plastic sprues, and that immediately gives you a massive French fleet to start playing around with. If you're more interested in the outflanking fast force, then I would suggest getting a Magenta battle fleet set, because, well, that specialist battle fleet set, the Levant battle fleet, is led by one of these. So if that fast outflanking idea is more to your liking, get this one. Now the main strength of the French force is that they are incredibly fast. They also have some excellent point-blank firepower, particularly because of one weapon, the Heat Lance and the Heat Lance set, which just gets stronger as you get closer to enemy ships. They also have some incredibly good short-range squadron fighting capabilities. Those are called SRS tokens, and those are the tiny little fighter plane tokens that you will have seen if you're checking this game out. Another big advantage is that they have a lot of skimmers that can even go into full flight mode every other turn if they want to, so you've got a lot of maneuverability on top of speed. The major downsides to this, however, is that the ships are innately a bit more fragile than their counterparts found in other factions or even other nations, and you are paying quite a hefty price point for that skimmer advantage as well. You can go around terrain, fly over it and all of those fun things, but you are paying a high points cost for it, which lends to that fragile feel that the French can have. If you are playing with the French and you're just engaging your opponent head-on without really taking advantage of the scenery in place, that might spell doom unless you are incredibly good at identifying threats and neutralizing them before they can do a lot of damage to your fleet. So strike fast, strike first, that is very much the French playstyle. Now that isn't the only thing that you can do with this faction though. Luckily a full faction has multiple playstyles, and that shows if you decide to go down the Italian side of the whole equation by taking either a Mars or a Minerva battle fleet set as your next expansion. The strength of the Italians is that they are also still quite fast, they have some of the best artillery found in game, and they also get some really cool repair options that make them incredibly durable, especially compared to their French counterparts. In addition, they have a really cool upgrade piece which drops mines all over the place, and you can really hamper your opponent's maneuvering by dropping a bunch of mines before the game even starts, or launching them from afar like the Italians can do. The main downside to the Italians is that they are a very classic naval force, and that means that they do not have the same maneuverability that the French have with their fast skimmers. I call this a downside. If you are of course looking for a traditional naval force, the Italians are absolutely excellent. But if you were drawn to Dystopian Wars because of all of the cool underwater mecha and the flying ships, etc., well, the Italians don't really have that. They have some gorgeous ships, but they are very much often focused on the surface units. And then the third big way that you can expand your force is by dipping your toe into the Socialist Union of South America, which comes abbreviated as the Susa. And if you want to do that, you're best off buying a Columbia battle fleet set. Mind you, the Susa is not exactly a powerhouse within the world of Dystopian Age, and that means that you always have to have another main battle fleet to go alongside with them. They can be quite strong though. They are incredibly durable just by having a high amount of armor and an incredibly high citadel value. They also come with some fun maneuverable options by having paddle wheels, which allows them to turn up to 90 degrees like a tank almost would, and they have some fun little Terminator assault ships that they can launch from their own vessels to bring the fight up close and personal to the enemy and do boarding actions at longer range. The downside is that they have a less disciplined crew altogether, so bearing in mind that they do have Terminators, their traditional boarding game is rather weak. In addition, they are fairly slow unless they move in a straight line, and again, they are very much a classic naval force because, well, they are sort of the rebellious southerners from the Union that have fled and struck a pact with the Alliance for some extra military firepower, anything to stick it to the Union really, given the Alliance point of view. And that is pretty much what you can do with your force. Now I'm going to take a couple of examples out of them, either from a purely competitive point of view, like I'm doing here, but I won't be doing an overview for every single box. That's maybe not needed for a beginner, but I do want to highlight some of these. The first one being the Couron battle fleet set. Now there's a good reason why I say that this would be an incredibly good option to go for if you care about the competitive side as well. This flagship brings very big additions to your battle fleet. Two big additions. First of all, it unlocks SRS tokens to your fleet with a whopping 10 of them, which is no small amount, and it also brings the Fortunes of War ability, an ability that is quite important in the game because it allows you to cancel your opponent's valor effects. which means that if your opponent's gameplay relies a bit too much on card play, you can really throw a spanner in the works by using this ship. Now, this one is not the easiest to pilot, though. You might take some getting used to it, because it is incredibly fragile for such an expensive ship. It only has armor 7 after all, and is crippled relatively quickly. But it is incredibly well protected against torpedo attacks due to its reinforced waterline, and it has maritime patrol, which means that submarauders are going to have a hard time just getting to your ship. Combine that with an excellent range on the SRS tokens, and you have a ship that definitely has to hang back, because this one has a giant target on her head. And even though it is not exactly everyone's cup of tea, you do not have to get the statue on top of it. It is a magnetizable option, but you can upgrade this ship to be inspirational, which means it also boosts some other ships around her, which makes it a strong entry, but it is not mandatory. In addition, if you buy this ship, you also get 2 additional frontline sprues and 2 Levant sprues, meaning that if you opted for that Chevalier cruiser squadron, you can actually fill it out and then still have an extra cruiser option for instance, that Charlemagne to lead an outflanking force, and it comes with 2 more Levant sprues, so you don't always have to take the Furieux. You can dip your toes in, for instance, a Volière class to add to the already impressive SRS that the Couronne brings. And if you wanted to go for the Italians afterwards, well, the best way to start with it is to get the massive box, which is the Minerva battle fleet set. This one also brings SRS tokens to your fleet, but the Minerva has a slightly lower capacity, meaning it will only launch 8 tokens. It does, however, bring a small thing that the other one doesn't have, which is the advanced repair facilities, and on top of that you get enough sprues to have access to those excellent Scorpio artillery cruisers that I mentioned earlier. Now, in terms of the Minerva itself, it's a carrier with armor 8, it comes with ablative flank armor, so you're best off turning the sides of it towards the enemy, and it comes with advanced repair facility 3, which means that it can throw up to 7 dice for repair, and repair ships around it, which makes for an excellent pairing with those Scorpio cruisers that are no doubt going to be targeted by your opponent if he knows what he's doing. Another great thing about this box is that it actually is the largest Dystopian Wars box that is created up to date, which comes with 3 frontline sprues and 3 support sprues, which means that you basically have your full squadrons in one go, except of course for the Scorpio artillery cruisers that only come in pairs rather than trios, because they are just that good. But that does mean that you have some excellent options such as the Auxilia fast cruiser and the Puggio destroyer that come in full squadrons, which are excellent. The person who plays with the Italians here definitely knows how good they are ever since he started using them. And even if you want to ditch your French counterparts entirely, if you, on top of this box, then get an Italian support squadron and perhaps even the Mars box to go for a bit more diversity in playstyle, you end up with a 2000 point Italian force in no time with minimal effort. So yeah, very easy to expand on this even further. And then your last major option is by going for the Susa route via the Columbia. Now, this always needs to be accompanied by your French starter set, so it's a bit different compared to the Italians that can just be a thing on their own. After a while, these can't. However, it does unlock a fun little playstyle of a typical hammer and anvil, where you have your slow and purposeful Susa units deploy on the board in the center, with your faster friendships that can work on any flanks and sort of strike at some vulnerable parts, because their speed and agility will mean that you can meet up again with your Susa companions in the center of the board as well, and that basically unlocks a great threat in the center by going for the boarding actions through Terminator assaults, which I personally think is a fun build to play with. Now, I mentioned how these units are quite slow, but if they go in a straight line, they're not actually that slow. They are full steam ahead rule, which means that they can double their drift, meaning even the big battleships will be moving at a respectable 10 inches, which doesn't exactly make them lumbering behemoths, does it? So you can definitely play around their weaknesses, and that particular Columbia battleship, or the Virginia class, which has my preference, but okay, is a combination of armor 8, citadel 17 and 10 hull points before you go crippled, and that is about as extreme as it gets for flagships of this size. And then as a small little tidbit, if you decide to go for an anvil force through the Susa, you do cheekily have a neat little start for a future Union force if you magnetize weapons. And why do I mention this? Well, there is a very interesting box called Fortunes of Glory, which actually has 2 mercenary factions in there, one from the Sultanate and one from the Union as well. And you can actually make a full Union force by combining those 2, and then you really have a lot of play of potential factions if you later on expand with Fortunes of Glory and you chose the Columbia battle fleet set as your first expansion for an alliance force. And there you have it. That was a quick recap on how I personally think you are best off starting with the Alliance in Dystopian Wars. If you found the video useful at all, make sure that you give the video a thumbs up. That really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to see more Dystopian Wars content and soon Armored Clash content, make sure that you subscribe to the channel for any future videos. That was it for today though. I do hope to see you in the next video. Until then, bye.